And now for our looking back speech, students Jacqueline Marston.
Before I begin this speech, I need to apologize to my family because I didn't tell any of them I was doing this. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. Teachers, parents, and fellow members of Suburbia, my name is Jacqueline Marston, and I've lived in this town, Wilsonville, my whole life. 1,375 days ago, we walked into the brick building of Wilsonville High School. We've always been talking about this day, graduation day, since day one. But before we actually walk the stage behind me, I want to tell you some stories and some things I've learned as my 4 years here at WHS. Let's begin at the blurry part, freshman year. We were squeaky clean that year. New hairdos and clothes, new backpacks full of fresh lined paper and labeled folders to match. We avoided the treacherous point and stayed in our safe haven of the commons and cafeteria. But from time to time, we are forced to cross those forbidden waters in order to reach everyone's favorite class, biology. Biology was the one class that threw most of us into high gear, and I'm pretty sure our class had the lowest GPA due to that. I learned a few things from the thousands of PowerPoint slides. Mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell. What me and my table mate's baby would look like. And photosynthesis does not involve a camera. But the one thing that stuck with me the most was on the final slide. I was sitting in Mr. Milham's classroom, center table, looking left at the board. The question at the top of the slide was, why is life so different? I was waiting to hear an answer I've heard before, but I never got it. Mr. Milham then clicked the pointer, and the only bullet on that slide was beauty. He further explained that the different types of life allowed it to be interesting. If life was all the same trees over and over again, the same flowers over and over again, the same grass over and over again, it would be boring. And that's why we are all so different. We can't all have the same passions, the same perspectives, the same experiences and dreams and aspirations. We can't all like the same food or have the same favorite color. We can't all root for the best team, even though we all know it's the Oregon State Beavers. Yeah. You have to look around this world and appreciate our differences because it makes life more beautiful and interesting and worth exploring. Sophomore year, we all became a little more comfortable. We left the commons and were slowly moving south towards the point. We knew where classes were, knew some upperclassmen, but most importantly, we weren't freshmen. We finally felt like high schoolers. I think the number one factor in that were the swinging flails of car keys on lanyards. You'd hang them on your neck so they'd bounce with your swag, or have the lanyard hang so low out of your pocket you had to play jump rope with it as you walked down the stairs. You felt powerful as your keys hit the beige desk, bang! But later that day, you'd be like me, walking towards the buses, and hear bang! Mitchell Stauffer hits Drew Schwartzer's car. We walked the halls differently, learned in the classroom differently, and encountered teaching styles like we never had before. My first experience of, oh, I should have been paying attention, was in Mr. Humphrey's advanced algebra class, because it was the first time he called on me that entire year. And he totally threw me off guard. I was in some type of trance and his words made no sense. I quickly glanced about the board, and he wanted to know which number had the bigger absolute value, -13 or -27. I said -27, but when further asked for an explanation, I was stumped. He coolly turned around, paused, and said, absolute value isn't about how far you go, it's about how far you've come. He returned back to the board and no further questions were asked that year. But I had that statement ringing in my head for all the days afterwards. It's really hard in high school not to compare yourself to your peers, who has the nicest car, the nicest clothes, the most amount of friends. But grades were the worst because they're quantifiable. It's heartbreaking knowing that you studied the material for 3 hours a night, 2 weeks in advance for a test, and came out with a B-, while your classmates barely even did the homework and got over 100%. But the person who learned the most is the person who went from a D+ to a B-, not the person who went from an A- to an A. Learning has to do with desire, curiosity, and effort. The person who gained the most value is the one who came the furthest. To not feel less worthy than someone else because they seem to have more than us, but to look at ourselves and see how far we've come as to how we should judge our own self-worth. Junior year. The year of complaining. Everyone who just laughed teaches junior year. You can spot a junior almost as easily as a freshman based solely on two factors: the bags under their eyes and the bags on their back. This is where the complaining part comes in. Everyone would complain how they couldn't type up their timed right because they had to do their lab, or they couldn't read their book that was assigned 7 weeks ago because they had to study for a math test. So at lunch, they were frantically reading the book and not looking up the analysis on SparkNotes. There was a lot of scrambling, and when people scramble, they complain. My favorite moment of complaining was by far when they announced when state testing would occur. I was sitting in Mr. Fitzgerald's AP English class with 13 other students. He broke the news that the week before AP testing, we were given the privilege to participate in state testing and all of the state testing: math, science, reading, and writing. We might have had only 14 voices, but Mr. Fitzgerald heard every single one of us. He was upset. But after hearing us complain for a heated 5 minutes, he had enough. He snapped and said, "Of course, it's not fair or right." Because that's just what happens. Complaining to me won't stop it. It was interesting seeing him like that because he was totally right. If you're actually asking for change and someone's aid, it's help. Or pity. Because you don't want to change, you just like the attention. And Mr. Fitzgerald knew that. Complaining to him wasn't going to reschedule the state of Oregon's testing, so we just had to get to work. There's going to be countless times where something will get difficult and then only become more difficult. You're just going to have to deal with it. So after that year, we got through the worst of it. Senior year was fun. We began it by starting the new hopeful tradition of senior sunrise, where we all went down to the football field and watched the gray clouds cover the sky. Oh, Oregon, always so kind. We had a lot of laughs that year. One of my favorites is when Miss Tucker accidentally started an entire class group message. You remember. A little context. She started a text reminder system where she could send out a message to all of our phones for important senior reminders. But, fortunately for us, she can change the messages to one way. So we, the individuals, could send a message to the group, the entire senior class. Simultaneously, during fifth period, every single senior's phone received a message. I looked at my phone, and the first message was from Donald Trump saying, "Miss Gregg, where you at, BB?" Unfortunately, within about 30 minutes, Miss Tucker fixed the group message, but it was fun while it lasted. Senior year was different from all the other years because as our favorite substitute teacher, Mr. John Welty, who, if you didn't know, taught our previous principal, Mr. Downs, once said, "You can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you learn that the light is actually an oncoming freight train." And that's when it hit me of how awesome our teachers are. 4 years ago, I sat right over there for the class of 2012's graduation. My sisters were graduating. The speaker was congratulating the teachers more than the actual graduates, and I, as a naive 8th grader, didn't understand. The students put in all the work. They showed up to do it. They should receive all the praise. But in reality, it's the teachers because they gave the work and taught it. And they did a fantastic job because we all ended up in caps and gowns. So I'm sorry it took me this long, you guys. I respect you immensely because you picked something and you picked to help us. It's because of people like you who make people like me work even harder because there's no reason not to work hard. It's because of people like you who go to school at 5 in the morning so a student can take a test. It's because of people like you who stay after school for hours to help students learn subjects in new ways and then go to the basketball game afterwards to support another student who didn't have any fans. It's because of people like you who treat students more than a piece of paper through a Scantron. It's because of people like you who care more about what students write than how they write. It's because of people like you who look for the beauty and the progress and the challenge and the knowing that it's going to be a fight to live an interesting life, but it is a fight worth fighting for. And for that, I speak on the behalf of the class of 2016 by saying thank you. Yeah. And then there's the rest of you. Specifically, the parents, but anybody who helped in raising us, because that is no glamorous job either. If you're anything like my mom, you were Superwoman. She sat out in the rain every fall Saturday morning to watch me play soccer. She packed me a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every morning for 13 years. When I forgot my geometry binder freshman year, she left work to bring it to me during a miraculously timed fire drill. She taught me how to drive and to walk into a room like I owned it. She held me when I would cry and laugh at my bad jokes. She is everything I've ever wanted to be. So to all the parents and families who gave it their all for the last 18 years, thank you. I don't admire only my family, but all of our families, because you've done this scary thing called life, and you got us through it too. 1,375 days ago, we walked into the brick building of Wilsonville High School, but we sure aren't the same people who are walking out. In that short period of time, so much has changed, so many stories were written. Everyone's story is different, but what is unique to us here sitting in blue, is we all did it at Wilsonville High School. The beginning of your story started here whether you like it or not, and those stories are worth telling and worth listening to. Everyone's story is. From strangers on the street to close family and friends, but most importantly, and always forgotten, you. Your story is worth telling and worth listening to because it's beautiful and progressive and challenging and overall fascinating. I love telling stories. Thank you all for letting me tell you some of mine. But most importantly, I loved being a part of yours. So thank you, class of 2016, for letting me be a part of your story. Aww. Oh my God. My heart. You guys are the best. And now, Alex Manello for the looking forward speech.
Let's have another little round of applause for Jacqueline Marston.